Today we'll be discussing the systemic barriers that minority formerly incarcerated individuals face when trying to re-enter society, particularly when it comes to employment and housing. In this presentation, we will explore how various social structures create significant barriers for formerly incarcerated individuals, making it difficult for them to secure employment and stable housing, both of which are critical steps in successful reintegration. These obstacles often increase the risk of recidivism. The key employment-related barriers include educational disparities, hiring discrimination, and occupational licensing restrictions. On the housing front, federally mandated and permissive denials of housing assistance due to criminal records along with financial obstacles pose significant challenges. These systemic issues are further reinforced by societal stigma, perpetuating cycles of disadvantage and limiting opportunities for a fresh start, especially for minority individuals. Information from the Prison Policy Initiative shows that there's low educational attainment among individuals who were incarcerated. Using nationally representative data from the Bureau of Justice, the U.S. Census Bureau, and their own analysis of the National Former Prison Survey, they found that 40% of incarcerated individuals lack a high school diploma or GED. Of those who do have GEDs earned in prison, they rarely lead to higher education, with only 10% pursuing college compared to 50% of the general public. There is an impact on earnings because of this, where people with high school diplomas earn 33% more than those with a GED. It's clear that employers prioritize formal education over prison-based education. The graph presented here also shows how race is a factor, and minority individuals are further disadvantaged in the hiring pool by being less educated on average than their white peers. The highest of those without a high school diploma or GED are Hispanic men and women. On the flip side, the highest of those with a college degree are white men and women. Even when formerly incarcerated individuals do pursue education or job training, many career paths are blocked due to occupational license restrictions. According to the National Inventory of Collateral Consequences of Conviction, there are more than 13,000 restrictions that prevent people with criminal records from obtaining licenses needed for jobs in fields like healthcare, law, finance, and even barbering. Some of these restrictions are automatic, meaning individuals are disqualified solely because of their record, regardless of their qualifications. In Maryland, for example, despite laws passed to reduce these restrictions, licensing agencies have been slow to comply, making it difficult for people with records to even apply. The Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing oversees 21 boards, and they report that out of around 600,000 license applications they received from 2014 to 2018, only 800 had a criminal record, which is barely 0.13%. By comparison, nearly 9,000 people were released from Maryland prisons in 2017 alone, and roughly 8% of the nation's population has been convicted of a felony. This discrepancy shows how many are discouraged from pursuing careers that require a license, further limiting their job opportunities. We can see the reality of the job search through examples like John Jones. He served 5 years in prison for a felony assault. After getting out, he had to check a box saying he had a criminal record on every job he applied to, which was hundreds. Rejection after rejection came back. Jones was unemployed for 18 months doing whatever it took to get by, even occasionally going back to hustling, as he put it. While he was going through this time of his life, he felt incapable. He said that having a criminal history can sometimes make it feel like your application goes into a black hole. There was nothing that he could do about the way that he was perceived. He eventually went on to work for the Ella Baker Center as a criminal justice advocate, though. One of the biggest reasons hiring discrimination persists is systemic stigma. Employers often perceive formerly incarcerated individuals as risky, unreliable, or even dangerous, despite a lack of evidence supporting these biases. An NIH study of about 360 hiring managers found that prior incarceration significantly lowered an applicant's perceived hireability. The study also revealed that racial bias intersects with criminal history, making it even harder for Black and Hispanic individuals to find work. The study identified a causal link between criminal history and various negative perceptions, including the extent to which an applicant's current struggles were seen as their own fault, assumptions about dangerousness, preferred social distance from the applicant, and willingness to offer help or opportunities. For example, sociologist Deva Pager's landmark study on hiring discrimination found striking racial disparities. In her field experiment, matched pairs of Black and white job applicants, some with criminal records and some without, applied for jobs. The result revealed that 34% of white applicants with no criminal record received callbacks, but only 17% of white applicants with a record did. The disparity was even worse for Black applicants. 14% of those without a record received callbacks, while only 4% of those with a record did. This demonstrates that employers discriminate not just based on incarceration history, but also race, making it even harder for minority individuals to find stable employment. This stigma isn't just conscious bias, it's deeply ingrained in employer mindsets. Philip Genti, director of the Prisoners and Families Clinic at Columbia Law School, described this mindset. He says, many employers have a mental block against hiring people with criminal records. You can almost look at incarceration as a contagious disease. Once somebody has that taint, they're just looked at differently. It's not even at the rational level. Employers are rejecting qualified individuals not based on logic, but on fear and bias. The combination of educational discrimination and licensing barriers leads to high unemployment rates among formerly incarcerated individuals. Even when they are qualified, they're often excluded from jobs due to hiring discrimination. The combination of limited education, restrictions on licensing, and employer bias creates a nearly impossible job search, especially for minority individuals. Some people argue that employment restrictions for formerly incarcerated individuals are necessary for public safety, business risk management, or fairness to law-abiding citizens. First, some claim that businesses should have the right to avoid hiring individuals who might harm their reputation, customers, or workplace culture. While employers can make hiring decisions as they see fit, the assumptions that all formerly incarcerated individuals are unreliable or dangerous is not supported by evidence. A 2021 SHRM Getting Talent Back to Work report found that the majority of employers reported employees with criminal records performed as well as or better than those without records in terms of retention and reliability. Another concern is that hiring formerly incarcerated individuals could disadvantage those without records. However, the job market's not a zero-sum game. Employing this population does not take opportunities away from others. In fact, studies from the Federal Bureau of Prisons shows that increasing employment for formerly incarcerated individuals reduces the overall economic strain of incarceration and makes communities safer by lowering recidivism rates. Stable employment is one of the strongest predictors of reducing repeat offenses. Once individuals have served their sentence, imposing additional barriers contradicts the principles of rehabilitation and reintegration.
The inability to acquire employment upon reentry is in itself a harm to successful reintegration. It's also strongly intertwined with another significant barrier faced in reentry, securing housing. Following reentry, it's likely individuals will be unable to afford housing, as they will have been unemployed for at least the duration of their sentence and may be lacking in resources prior to conviction. A 2018 study conducted by the Census Bureau and the University of Michigan calculated the mean income for individuals released from prison in 2006 from 13 states, representing over 40% of the U.S. population. It was found that the median income was $10,090, yet the minimum income required for eligibility to public housing was $12,250, meaning that if considering only income, the majority of formerly incarcerated individuals would not only need assistance but also qualify for it. And for those who may be able to acquire employment or do have the resources to invest in housing post-release, a shortage of affordable housing options persists, giving landlords the chance to deny housing to individuals with criminal records upon background checks. Here, individuals are left with public housing, Section 8 vouchers, or other forms of assisted housing. These assistive options, however, are not guaranteed, as they themselves serve as significant barriers to these individuals. If someone has Section 8 housing or something, and I need a place, I can't stay with them, because I'm a felon. Although there are provisions put in place to limit housing discrimination in public housing, such as the 1968 Fair Housing Act that prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, religion, sex, national origin, family status, and disability, and the 2016 HUD memo stating that although having a criminal history is not protected, having it alone does not give reason for automatic denial, individuals with criminal history continue to be discriminated against. HUD has classified a number of federally regulated mandatory and permissive prohibitions that allow housing authorities to automatically deny assistance to individuals in need. For example, a denial must be issued if an if a household member is currently engaging in illegal use of a drug, there is reasonable cause to believe a member's illegal drug use or patterns of illegal drug use may threaten the health, safety, or right to peaceful enjoyment of the premises by other residents, or a member of the household is subject to lifetime registration under a state sex offender registration program, among others. There are also permissive denials that, while not federally regulated, housing authorities use these to extend federally regulated criteria to justify a denial. Not only may they stretch criteria, but housing authorities also have the freedom to define language such as currently and peaceful enjoyment at their discretion, making these supposedly accessible options even more challenging to obtain for many. For permissive denials, housing authorities may deny acceptance if they determine any household member is engaged in or has been engaged in any of the following behaviors: drug-related criminal activity, violent criminal activity, and other criminal activity which may threaten the health, safety, or right to peaceful enjoyment by other residents or health and safety of the staff and owner. With both mandatory and permissive denials, vague language and strong reliance on the discretion of housing authorities as the decision makers are significantly discriminating against those in need of housing assistance the most from obtaining it. In doing so, these individuals will face a heightened risk of homelessness and, from there, a significantly higher chance of reoffending. Not only may these individuals be discriminated against acquiring public housing on the basis of criminal activity or perceived criminal activity, but they may also be denied in the public or private market if they lack other financial requirements. In a study of 31 formerly incarcerated individuals' personal experiences in accessing housing, conducted through interviews, participants highlighted struggling with income requirements and credit in applying for housing. One participant recounts, "Right now, I'm trying to find a house. I can make the money for it. I got the money. The money is not the issue. It's the credit thing. I've never had a bill in my life. I've never paid. I probably paid a phone bill when I was like 18. That was it." Another participant apartment complex required that they prove their income was at least 3 times their monthly rent, and for them, this was impossible to achieve. In each of these instances, individuals had the immediate monetary resources to purchase housing. However, a lack of credit and savings as a result of being recently released from prison prevented them from doing so. Although this study was taken from a small sample of majority men and only encompassed participants from 3 regions of the U.S., it still provides beneficial insights into the struggles of acquiring secure housing for those who may have the monetary resources to do so, but don't meet other housing requirements. When evaluating how access to public housing and the housing market in general can facilitate a more successful transition for individuals post-release, some may argue that denying housing to the recently released is justified, and that these individuals may pose a threat to the safety and well-being of others involved in the housing process. A tenant with a young child may feel uncomfortable sharing living space with someone who has been recently incarcerated, potentially leading them to back out of their lease. This not only places the tenant at a disadvantage, forcing them to find new residency, but it also negatively impacts the landlord and their income. Additionally, it may also be argued that individuals who cannot afford housing due to reasons outside their control, such as having a disability or being a single mother with a minimum wage job, should be prioritized, whereas an individual with a prior conviction may be seen as having made a choice to lead to their incarceration. Those with disabilities, for example, did not, so they could be viewed as more deserving of assistance. While concerns for safety and fairness are important considerations, the recently released may pose an even stronger threat to themselves and their community if they are denied housing resources, as they will be more likely to reoffend and face street homelessness. If we want formerly incarcerated individuals to have the opportunity to successfully transition into society and have a lesser chance of reoffending, stable employment and safe places to live are essential. The social structures we have covered today play a significant role in the struggles these individuals face when seeking employment and housing post-release. We will continue this conversation by looking at the responses to these structures and harms in Project 3.